important is the first, second, and third properties for a portfolio?
Well, it's like a journey of 1,000 steps. A journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. So if you don't buy a first property, you've got no chance of building a portfolio. If you don't buy a second property, you're not building a portfolio. And it'll tell you by your third, you still don't have anything resembling a portfolio. You just have 2 properties. So it's super, super important, but it's also quite difficult. To be honest, anyone in the last 2 years could have bought property and feel like they're a champion, because, you know, when properties suddenly go up 25, 30% in 18 months, everyone goes, well, this is so easy, we should all be doing more of it. And then suddenly the doom and gloom sets in and people go, oh, you know, where are we going to get our next deposit from? Oh, yeah.
Essentially, as an individual, so what we're kind of saying here is, as an individual, if you own 5 properties, you want to buy 5 properties in Queensland, you're going to go above your individual threshold. And you're going to get charged stamp duty. You're going to get charged land tax on them up to the value of the land over the threshold that we outline in the thing, and have a look on the government, blah, blah, blah. Use our calculator, actually. It'll give you a kind of loose idea.
I put the video we did with Jeremy as well, Joe.
What you can do is separate these into individual trusts, and the trusts are different entities, and then they have a different land tax threshold. So they then get their own. They get, what was it? What's the?
It's 350,000. So 600,000 as an individual, 350 as a company. Yep. But more importantly, if my company that I set up to buy property within Queensland doesn't own any property in any other state, I still stay under the threshold.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where the rest of that property is.
No, well, it doesn't. It matters. So if that same trust, so I just bought a couple of properties in WA, for example. So if those properties had been in the same trust as where I own my Queensland properties, then they would get added in to see if my Queensland trust
has to be separate from.
Because I set up 2 new trusts to own my WA properties, then they're separate legal entities. They can't add up all my entities, or at the moment there's no plan to.
Yep, they can't. They can't untangle. Like, you own.
Well, they can't, but at this stage they can't.
Not. Whereas New South Wales do. The New South Wales say, hey, if you own properties in multiple trusts, well, we're going to tax all of it in New South Wales.
I think South Australia is the same, are they?
Yeah, I think they are. I'm not certain, because one of my clients got some. I thought the accountant. I said, talk to your accountant, and I thought their accountant should have advised them against setting up a trust, and their accountant advised them to set up a trust based on the land tax. So
would have been a reason,
I hope it wasn't just purely for fees, but that's the risk. So I'm not certain, and I don't own property in South Australia, nor do I plan to. But that's a
controversial opinion there with Joe. Joe's practically the mayor of Adelaide. How do you feel about that, Joe? You okay with Max?
There's amazing investment opportunities in Adelaide that I am continuing to buy. So I've got.
I'm sure there is. There's amazing opportunities everywhere. It's about understanding how the land tax works and having a grown-up conversation with your accountant. So you can set up a unit trust to buy in New South Wales, and then your unit entitlement gets whatever your share of the land is, gets added to your personal land tax threshold. So if you buy a $400,000 block of land if you've already got $800,000 worth of land in New South Wales, if you've got $400,000 worth of land in New South Wales, and then you buy another block of $400,000 worth of land through a unit trust, then they know that is yours. You're entitled to get the benefit of that. So they will add that to your personal threshold and say 400 plus 400 is under the threshold, no land tax to pay. For properties, I always want to focus on the negative first. So the first thing is they cost money to set up. Now, I can jump online and set one up I can set up a company for $600 with ASIC, and I can download a trust deed for $110 off the internet. But that's because I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, and every state has a different stamp duty as well. Be careful of. that.
Correct. Yeah. Now I know what I'm doing, so I'll set them up myself. But I paid for the first one, and I would always recommend paying for the first one. Once you paid for the first one, if you can see how it works, then you can copy the format and do your own next time. But it does cost between $1,000 and $2,000 to set up. Then you've got to pay every year. ASIC at the moment, they just up their fees to $290 a year, and you've probably got somewhere between $100 and $400 in accounting fees. Some accountants will try and charge you $1,000 or more. Leave them. Find another one. I am in the process of finding another accountant because they are overcharging me on one of my trusts. Now, in New South Wales and Victoria, you will pay land tax on $1 for a family trust. So if you're an individual and you buy property, you get like a $800,000 or whatever land tax allowance before you pay land tax. But if it's a trust, you get nothing. So if you're going to buy in a trust, maybe not a family trust in New South Wales or Vic.
Okay, that's good. It's good to
know.
Then
no negative gearing at all.
Yeah.
So any losses are locked in the trust and carried forward into the future.
And what about capital gains tax?
Capital gains tax, if you have to pay
discount, capital gains tax discount.
Separate things. Let's look at let's talk about the pros. That's not a con. So the capital gains tax is not a con. There is no con on capital gains tax. Okay? So I'm going to talk about the pros now. So the pros is the taxable income for family trust is allocated to the lowest income earner in each year. Now, if you happen to make a capital gain, that capital gain can be allocated. Now, if that capital gain is allocated to an individual, that individual is entitled to get the 50% CGT discount, is my understanding, but I'm not an accountant, go talk to one. Okay? But if you do make a big capital gain, then it's great to be able to allocate money to different family members. Okay?
Super useful.
Yeah. Well, we sold a property in the States a few years back. So, yeah, it was very useful. Now, the borrowing capacity is increased with more trusts. Now, the best way I know of explaining this is to say, imagine you own a property and then you go to the bank and say, my trust would now like to get a mortgage. So I've got one mortgage in my name. The trust wants to get a mortgage. Now, the trust is the borrower. The borrower doesn't have any assets or liabilities, and the borrower is only going to get rental income. And that's not going to be enough to service the debt. And so you're going to have to go guarantor. Now, as soon as you go guarantor, any loans in your name get added in. So now the bank looks at it and says there are two mortgages on this application, which is your existing mortgage plus the new trust mortgage. That's two mortgages. Now, that would be identical for if you just put the application together and ask for a second mortgage on the new property. So if you get one trust, it works identically to if you buy it in your own name from a borrowing capacity perspective. But if you go and buy a property in one trust, and then you decide you want to buy another property, and you choose to set up a new trust for the new property, then the new trust with a corporate trustee is the borrower and has no other mortgages in its name, and you're the guarantor and you have one mortgage in your name. So now the application has two loans on it, just like the first application did, which means if you passed serviceability on the first one, you pass more serviceability on the second one, and the third one, and the fourth one, and the fifth one. And one of our clients just bought his 12th property, 9 of which he's bought this year.
And what's his income?
It's enough to service the 3 existing properties plus one more.
Okay.
1 to 2 more, actually. So his 3 existing properties plus 1 to 2 more. And all of his then extra ones are in trusts. And that's all he needs to be able to service is his 3 existing properties plus one more, plus one more, plus one more, plus one more until we get to 12.
Okay? So essentially it kind of, I don't want to say the word hides it, but as long as that trust can service itself, and how do you? Yeah, I don't know. It sounds too good to be true.
Correct. So so, firstly, if you go to Commonwealth Bank with that, they're going to go, what about the debts for the other trusts? We're going to count all those as well. And Commonwealth Bank will decline the application, the second application. For most other lenders, they will say, hey, you're director of a company. Now I'm director of a company that's a business, as well as being a director of a trustee company. They're going to say to me, we want to see the tax returns for those two entities. And I'm going to say, well, here's the tax returns for my company, because obviously I use that income to pay my wages and to cover servicing, and also because I have to prove I'm not making a loss. But they then say, well, where's the tax returns for the trust? And I say, oh, here's a letter from my accountant to say that that company is an asset holding trustee company only. The interesting thing is here, up until a few months ago, the accountants used to write a letter to say that that company was not losing money. But accountants were told to stop writing those letters. So they were told, don't make assertions about the tax returns if you haven't done them yet. And even then, don't make assertions about the future because you can't guarantee it. So what they did was change the wording on the letter to say that entity is an asset holding entity, is a trustee company for an asset holding entity, end of. And the bank says, thanks very much, tick. Now, as soon as you're borrowing in a company and buying an investment property, this loan is now no longer under the National Consumer Credit Protection Act. And therefore, you have to put on your big boy or girl pants and make your own decisions, because the banks don't have to protect you from your own stupidity of getting into too much debt.
I love talking property investing. That is kind of property investing that we were talking about. But
of course,
I think one of your first points is about the importance of sort of organizing your money and getting it all together. So why is that actually important?
Well, it comes back to, when we talk about growing your wealth, if the trick is to spend less than you earn and invest the difference, well, then how do you spend less than you earn? Because everything we tend to talk about is all about the investing.
Yeah.
We tend to spend, you've got some charts there, but I've kind of jumped ahead a couple, but there's sort of four things that I tend to look for. Firstly is how do I control the money? Secondly, how do I set goals for my life? Because jumping out and taking action is brilliant. You've got to do it. But what are you trying to achieve by it? And how does property meet the needs? And then how do we keep extending our borrowing capacity? Because everyone's borrowing capacity is dropping like a stone. And how do we extend it if we do want to keep investing in the future? And then also, what do we buy in a flat or declining market? Because I'm still out there looking, and I've got clients that are out there looking. I've got family members that are out there looking, and I'm not telling them to stop buying, even though we might think the market has got more in some markets, because there's no such thing as the property market, have got more downside than upside risk. But yeah, so they're the sort of the big questions I want to look at. But the most underrated one is, how do I control my money?
Okay.
And that's
what do you mean by
that? Can you flick on the slides, but just skip ahead a couple?
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You just too quick.
I need to skip ahead. Yeah, that's sorry. I need to skip ahead. That's me. I didn't realize. I'm controlling. Yeah. So you spend less than you earn and invest the difference. Like I say, everyone tends to focus on the investments. Some will focus on the income, get another job. But hardly anyone looks at spending. And people tell me things like, it's the cost of living. We're not idiots with our money. We spend what we spend. And we always clear our credit card in full. So therefore, we're fine. And the truth is quite different. And a typical conversation, and I know that, Jeff, you've been a broker before, but this is a conversation I have with clients day in, day out. And I ask the question, first thing, how much do you spend each month? And, Mitch and Grace, lovely people, they start adding up their bills and their groceries, and they go, oh, that's about a couple of $1,000. And then entertainment, that's about 500. So let's say $2,500 a month. Now, I know full well that the household expenditure matrix for them as a couple with a child is about $3,500. And so them saying they're spending $2,500 is probably a load of crap. But I let them go for a little while because that's what they said and that's what they think they can prove. And then we ask them the next question. So what's your typical credit card bill? $4,000. Typical, absolutely typical. I'm not, I've generalized the figures, but that's what they're actually spending. And in fact, the typical credit card bill in this particular couple, and it's true of everyone, is $4,000 a month is very typical, and it's very typical to be massively out when we estimate from the bottom up. We add our bills up quite accurately, and in Australia we only spend, when we add up bills and groceries, we only spend about 15-20% of our income on that. The rest of it goes on all the discretionary stuff that we don't realize we're doing.
That's crazy, because I thought I was relatively good with money, and like, I'm not horrible, I'm not sort of going out, but I've been tracking it now for quite some time, and you definitely underestimate how much you're spending. And it's the credit card or the bank statement or whatever it is you look at things these days doesn't lie.
It's looking at, but it's the problem with that is looking in the rearview mirror, but it doesn't kind of work. So if we kind of move along from there, it is normal to be bad with money. Money is an abstract concept. It's very hard to keep track of, and maths is hard. Mental maths, I'm very good at mental maths. It's one of the things I was naturally gifted with as a child and practiced, and I teach my grandson now about mental maths. I was so proud of him when he was able to work out what 80% of $850,000 was the other day. He's 7.
Wow.
No pen, no paper, no cap. But most people use the same account for their income and their spending. And what that means, and this is what we did in my 20s, is the more you earn, the more you spend. Most people also use the same account for bills and everyday spending. And so how do you know if what you've just spent was due to lots of bills or due to lots of discretionary spending? It's very difficult to know. And I know what we used to do was we used to look back at the credit card bill that was always a bit higher than we thought it should be. And we would focus on the big things. We'd focus on the electric bill, not on all of the little things that always add up. And of course, look, advertisers spend a fortune trying to woo us and get us to spend money. And, even McDonald's arches, they're yellow and red because it makes us feel hungry and want to take action. That's what those colors are designed for, to program in our brains, is to make us feel hungry and take action. That's what the yellow and the red combination does to us. And fast food alone in this country accounts for $2,200 per household average.
Per year? Or?
Yeah, I guess with like Uber Eats and stuff like that, that's probably even more inflated now.
Yeah, it's going absolutely crazy. So, but people don't think of it as being spending. And also, let's not forget, life is hard, and buying stuff makes it feel better for a short while. But this genuine story again, I have a client with $8 million in property, $2 million in loans, and is stressed about money.
That's crazy.
Genuinely stressed.
Yeah.
In fact, when I told him there was a solution to fix it, the guy was almost in tears, like happy tears, because he couldn't believe that this stress was going to get lifted away from him. Couldn't believe it.
Were they stressed because they were spending so basically all they earned? So what was the stress up?
No, they weren't spending all that they were earning, but they just didn't feel like they were in control of anything. And look, most people have typically people only have one account that everything goes through. And I know people, when they get a property, end up with just the offset account and try and do everything through that. And I know we posted about this on the weekend. The problem with this is, if you've got every single expense coming out of the same account and you've got 4 or 5 properties, then you've got 4 or 5 sets of rates, water rates, all those sorts of bills that are all coming out of your credit card. You've got all the repayments flying everywhere. You've got your childcare expenses. You've got your weekly this, your monthly the other, and it is stressful. And so, the guy's trying to run a massive spreadsheet to keep control of it. And a spreadsheet does not stop someone tapping a card.
True problem.
That's what it is. Here's the solution. It's very simple. It looks complicated. It's not. First thing is, if we separate out, our income goes into an account where we only ever pay bills. And we don't have any debit or credit card linked to that. Okay. I actually do this.
No card at all. No card whatsoever. You cannot use that account on your phone or your PayPass or anything.
If you have a card for it, keep it in a drawer in the office.
Yeah. Okay.
You don't need it in your wallet. You don't need it on your phone, because you're going to be an idiot with it if you do. Okay. Now, as soon as you do that, you've fixed 80% of spending problems.
Yep.
Because now, as your income grows, it gets stuck in this account that you're only paying bills from. And bills are kind of, you don't squander money on extra electricity because you've got a pay rise. What we do instead is we fix the everyday account, one each. Anyone who thinks they can do it together doesn't understand human beings. One each. If you're in a couple, one each. If you're on your own, one. But you put a fixed weekly expenses. Now, I don't care whether the pay comes in fortnightly, monthly, or whenever. Weekly is the best way of managing your grocery bills. And sorry, I've used the word bill. So groceries are not bills, just so you know. It's completely discretionary. The brilliant thing about putting groceries with you every day is that there's an incentive to cut back. But now we've fixed our spending. We fixed our discretionary spending on a weekly basis. But we then get the other discretionary spending, which is monthly. We throw it into a fun account. That account might be a separate account with the same bank, and you just transfer the money when you need it. So you're always only ever carrying one debit card each, which is linked to an account you can access.
And they're two different accounts, like two different connections.
So it depends on the couple. So it depends on the couple. So every couple needs an account each.
Because Joe gets every day and Joe gets fun. There's a fun Joe and a fun every day. Believe it or not, there is a fun Joe out there.
Yeah. So Max doesn't get a fun. So just so you know, Kelly gets a fun. Kelly gets an everyday. Max gets an everyday with stuff all money in it because Max doesn't spend money because he's a tight ass. Max doesn't need a fun money. He just needs to ask Kelly when he needs something. But that's what works for us. For other couples, there'll be a fun Joe and a fun. Sorry, what's your partner again? Cat. So there'll be a fun Joe and a fun cat. Yeah. So it depends on the couple. So but for me and Kelly, it's just this is Kelly's money, and she can do what the hell she wants with it, and I don't care.
Yeah, and then here you're allocating other funds for other things that you want to do, like a holiday or a house deposit, for instance. Correct. You can say, yeah. And then that bills packet just keeps accumulating any extras that you get on, and that becomes somewhat of a savings account, and you just keep paying the bills out as it happens.
Yes, some people would mix the bills in the future into an offset account, for example, after they've got a property. But you don't want to be spending from the offset account. You want to be spending from somewhere where you know what you're spending. We never look back at, you know how they spend tracking apps we were talking about earlier on? Me and Kelly never do that.
Yeah, you don't need to. You don't need to anymore. Yeah,
I know exactly what she spent last week and the week before, the week before, the week before, the week before.
Too, yeah.
But I want to share this with you, which is that how to invest in a flat or declining market, because it is something we've just settled on a property just recently. We're still looking. My son is investing at the moment. He's still looking. We've got lots of clients still looking, and it comes back down to what I said in the beginning: is how is the second way to create wealth is create value that others will pay for. And this is an example of the property that we bought, one of the properties we bought earlier this year in WA, where we bought this block in the middle. And you can see what they've done in the blocks around. Mm-hmm. And what I love is this block next door. So there is a precedent already. We know the planning permission is there. We check the measurements and the boundary. You know, when I was looking at the property via Zoom, I made them step over and look over the fence and see where the fence line was across here, and where it lined up with this bit here to see, can we fit another house on the back? And the answer is yes, we can. We know that we can get planning permission to do it. This property cost us $490,000. We renovated the front house because we don't have to knock it down. We could knock it down and build 3 like these guys have done. But when you look at the costs of doing that and the benefits, it's marginal at best. And I'm a big, I'm a conservationist at heart. I'm a big greenie. And so as far as I'm concerned, knocking down a house is not a great thing to do if it's still got good bones. And this
what would the build cost be roughly, Max?
Oh yeah.
For the one on the back, I've been told somewhere around about the 250 to 280 mark
it's not too bad
in this area. You're not getting a huge house on there, but it's, you know, to build something on the back here is somewhere around about 250, 280. Might have been about 200 to 220 before all the price hikes.
Yeah, this is awesome because you have multiple exit strategies here. Like if you want to just subdivide the land and sell the land, like you're in a pickle for whatever reason, you're stuck. You're not stuck. One, you've already added value with the renovation, so you've got instant equity there. You've then got the land subdivision, which you can go down the route of and then sell the land, or sell the front house, keep the land, or you can build a house on the back and sell the front house, keep the back house, sell the back house, keep the front house. It's the ultimate strategy.
And the other thing is we're not locked into a time frame here. We don't have to build on the back this year. We'd have to build on the back next year. So if the building materials is a bit crazy, we can just leave it as it is for a while. It rents fine.